Hi, and welcome to the first ever episode of Growth by Design, brought to you by RX2 Solutions. Because growth doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. I'm Rob Graham.
And I'm Ross Rosner, and together we're the co-founders and managing partners of RX2 Solutions. My background sits at the intersection of business operations and people strategy. I've led teams and partnered with executives across industries to align hiring with long-term business goals. What excites me is helping organizations design talent strategies that strengthen culture, improve retention, and set them up for sustainable success. Because growth doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design.
And again, I'm Rob Graham. My career is centered towards building strong client partnerships and delivering results that go beyond just fulfilling roles. At RX2 Solutions, we provide tailored human capital solutions for professional staffing to outsourced HR, designed to support each client's growth by design. What really drives me is seeing the impact when the right talent strategy transforms not only how an organization operates, but really how it grows.
And together at RX2, our mission is to deliver human capital solutions that help companies not only find the right people, but also build stronger organizations for the long term.
So today's episode, we're going to be discussing how people aren't really your biggest cost, but they're your biggest investment, and really the only one that these small businesses should be looking to make. Lots of times in small business world, Ross, people tend to see human capital or hiring people as a cost, but really you hire the right person, like you're just all off, right? And it is no longer a cost center. It's going to help you grow and develop your company. So starting from that, do you want to get into some of the statistics here with the small business and just some stats that we pulled that we thought were relevant?
Yeah, according to BLS, which doesn't have the best track record lately of accuracy, but according to them, around 53% of net job creation in the U.S. from 21 to 24 was from small businesses. Small businesses is defined as companies under 250 employees. Around 35 million small businesses in the U.S. Are out there. It accounts for almost every business out there. It's like 99.9% of businesses are small businesses. And they account for almost 44% of the U.S.'s GDP, which is around 27 trillion. So you're looking at like almost 13 trillion, 12 trillion coming just from small businesses in the U.S., which would make small businesses in the U.S. the biggest economy, well, the third biggest economy in the world, just behind China.
Yeah.
Which is a staggering statistic. I had no idea.
So just taken from that, right? Like if you have, as you said, the third biggest economy minus China here, like how are these people or these companies growing, right? And how costly is mishiring affecting them, right? And that's what we're going to kind of get into. Or even more importantly, is how do we retain the right people?
Yeah. I forget who the quote's attributed to, but I think that I heard a quote once that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. I think there's a lot of weight behind that. I think what the most important part is putting the right people in management positions and leadership roles. And what I've seen a lot of companies do that it seems intuitive, but it's actually counterintuitive, is putting your best producer in a management role, because the best players aren't always the best coaches. Key example there would be Michael Jordan. If Michael Jordan, arguably the best basketball player of all time, Tom Brady, arguably the best football player of all time, if the best player were the best coach, they'd be the best coaches, and that's not the case. So often what happens is companies will take someone that does a really good job in their role, who probably should be an individual contributor, move them into a management role, and they're just not suited for it. Then you have someone like a Steve Kerr, who was a bench player on the Bulls. Michael Jordan slapped him in practice. It's like a famous incident, and he ended up winning, I think, 4 or 5 championships with Golden State, just because he's a phenomenal coach. So I think what companies need to keep in mind is hiring and also promoting because of promotion and skill set, not necessarily because of production. When you put someone into a leadership role because of their production, what you end up getting is someone who holds the employees to an unattainable standard because they're holding them to their standard as a player. And it creates apathy with the employees. And then people do more or less enough to not get yelled at and not get fired. And then you have a culture of people wanting to leave early. People can't wait to get out of work. And then everybody's looking for a new job. So the best advice on how to retain your employees is set up a culture where they're able to thrive. And that starts with putting the right people in the right leadership positions, by putting people in there based on skill set, culture, and who has the potential to be in the role, not necessarily the best person who's best at that specific job.
Okay. So let's kind of expand on this a little bit, right? Like I think in the small business space, a lot of this is geared towards a lot of people wear a lot of different hats, right? And you're trying to figure out the ebbs and flows of business. Like, hey, I'm super busy right now. Hey, I'm not that busy right now. Hey, I'm super busy right now. Hey, I'm not. And for, the small businesses sub 250 people, 300 people, if you're looking at it, like you could get one mega client in here and now you need to ramp up quickly, right? Or you're going to have burnout, or you're not ramping up quick enough as your business grows, right? And you're not, you're still getting burnout, and some of your best employees now, you're losing them through retention and things of that nature. So I think this kind of ties into really building like a people portfolio. Okay. And from the small business standpoint, it's figuring out when and where to utilize your capital to hire, to strengthen your team. And it's not being, it's not a knee-jerk reaction, right? It's not being reactive. It's being proactive in your planning. So, obviously manufacturing is a little bit easier. You can see, hey, my clients are ramping up on X inventory, so I need to get more people in here to run the machines and everything of that nature, right? But that's just producing that. Has nothing to do with the customer service reps, the accounting, the back office, the billing people that might be tasked now because of all of the increased work, right? So now your accounts receivable person just quits on you. They've been there for 20 years, but they're overworked and like, the heck with this, I'm out. And you lose all that knowledge that's been there for forever. You lose the skill set. You have this goal, and now your accounts payable person is doing accounts receivable too, and you don't know how long they're going to be there, right? So it's not just building the culture. I think it's also from a leadership perspective, having the ability to understand how and when to hire and what that strategy looks like for your organization. And I do think that's a big piece that a lot of these small businesses overlook. And they don't know necessarily how to do properly. It's how to plan this out, not 4 to 6 weeks, but 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months. What milestones are going to hit this? And then where are we going from there? And then taking that and figuring out, what your culture and values are going to be when you hire those people. So you're hiring the type of candidates and the people that fit your company's cultures and their values, right? And this is, again, one of the things that I think we see a lot of times in the small mid-sized businesses is they don't have this plan in place, right? They don't have, like we joked, like when we started our company, we were like, hey, we're going to have a contingency for this. We're going to have a contingency for this. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And then COVID happened. Like, it's not funny, but like, I don't think many businesses planned out there for a global epidemic that was going to shut down the world, right? Small businesses, it could be the same thing. Your vice president of operations, you have a backup plan if he or she leaves, right? But you don't necessarily have the backup plan or the strategy in place to overcome the mid and lower level workers or employees when you're going and scaling.
So what advice would you give to a business owner who might be facing this issue?
I think it's to take a real stock of your employees to determine A, what their skills are, B, how you can upskill them. So where you can promote within and how you want to train and get that person done, right? And then kind of just always be recruiting and looking for good talent. If your company's in growth mode now, the likelihood is it's going to be in growth mode in 3 months or a year or whatever it is, based on any foreign economic situation. If your company is declining, it's probably going to be declining for the next 3 to 6 months anyways, until you can shape up and kind of get there. So knowing the trajectory of your business and doing an honest evaluation of what are your weakest points and then how you can shore them up, I think that's the best way of going with this.
Okay. What are maybe 1 or 2 companies you can think of that other business owners could model themselves after? And don't say Google, Amazon, or Tesla, because that's nobody out there, except for a handful of unicorns. But what are a couple businesses that maybe business owners could look to when sort of trying to navigate this?
So I think you can go back to the classic study of Southwest. Okay. I'm not going to dive into the data on that case study of it, but most business owners and leaders know that Southwest was created for culture and by culture, right?
Well, their ticker symbol's LOVE, LUV, has nothing to do with Southwest.
Exactly. And that's the point. Like, they built the company for their employees.
Yeah.
They wanted to have an organization that was employee centric and that promoted within had good culture, right? So I think that's a good starting place. And I'm not trying to say that, hey, everyone's got to go duplicate Southwest, or that giving everyone a free lunch and having free coffee and all this massage is what you need to do either, right? For small businesses specifically, there's a unique, demographic that we have, right? Where you can really cultivate a family-like environment within an organization, whether it's 5 or 200. I'm reminiscent of, it might be dating ourselves, but like when our grandparents used to work, like they would give out like turkeys for Thanksgiving to all their employees and things like that, right? And it made people want to show up and want to work, right? That turkey that cost whatever it did back then went a lot further because that family was now fed on Thanksgiving and it was there. So kind of fast forwarding that to now, I think that the companies who have really good benefits should kind of leverage them as a differentiator. Do you have good healthcare? Do you have good PTO? Do you have remote work policy, right? Do you have a gym on site? Do you have food plans? Do you take care of your spouses, your children, things like that? There was a company that we used to work with years ago out here in the King of Prussia area that had on-site paid daycare. So this is, a time when everyone's going in 5 days a week. Okay. But you have little kids. I have little kids. If I would have been working for a company that I could have dropped my children off when they were in daycare at work, that was managed, taught by professional daycare, like they were legit like daycare. And then when I was done, I would just go walk over and pick them up and drive home.
Or beyond that, even go down and have lunch with them if you wanted to spend more time with them.
I don't know if they could do that or not.
Well, maybe you can, maybe you can't.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, one of my wife's biggest complaints about going back to the office 4 days a week is that she doesn't get to see her kids as much as she wants to, or as much as she did during COVID. So, yeah, I mean, I see that as a huge benefit. Right. Absolutely. So let's look at the flip side of the coin. We've talked about what happens when you treat people well. What happens when you do the opposite, when you sort of treat people as the expense?
Well, you're just going to lose people. They're not going to stay around. Anyone that looks at tenure of an organization and everyone who's, let's say 50% of the employees, 60% of employees are sub 2 years, 3 years. There's a reason for that. And it could very well be that your company is only 3 years old, right? But if you've been around for 10 years and you have one or two people that have been there for a long time and everyone else leaves, you might want to kind of look at that and figure out what's going on. Because it's not the only thing that, it's probably you.
Right. Going back to Southwest, I think one of the key things about them was they encouraged their employees. It had to have been in the early 80s, I think. They encouraged their employees to have fun at work. It was like the opposite of micromanaging at a time when micromanaging was just the way companies did it. And they went the complete other direction. I don't know what would be the equivalent of that now. But that was sort of the other thing that they did. The reason they were able to turn around a plane in half an hour and get it moving on to the next location was because the employees cleaning the plane were having a blast doing it. They enjoyed going to work. They didn't think of work as work. I don't know how you would relate that to a specific industry, but if you can figure out how to get the employees to forget they're at work, that's huge. At least that's part of what Southwest did at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that we're talking about Southwest here. So on the small scale of things, is let people be flexible, right? If so-and-so coaches their son's or daughter's baseball team, maybe they come in early so they can leave early to make that practice, right? Maybe if there's a dance recital, they come in early, or they just skip lunch a couple days that week. Like, you can be flexible with these benefits or perks that really differentiate yourself, because small business, you may not be able to, like, they were talking about like Facebook or someone paying like millions of dollars to like these AI guys.
Millions, almost billions.
Yeah, to come in there and build this thing out for them. Okay. There's no small business is going to compete with that. And that's not the person that you're going to want to attract either. You're going to want to attract the person that has the more of the flexibility of life. And I don't mean that they don't have to show up and don't have to work. It's just there's different benefits you have that you can leverage.
Absolutely.
And, that's why, like, for small business specifically, people are a smart investment. The more that you attract and retain your workforce, the less headaches you're going to have. The less time now, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, you're running payroll and you're trying to get to a client meeting and you have to fix the door of the restaurant or whatever it is at the same time.
And, when you engage someone like us, it makes our lives easier too. We love telling a story about companies that take care of their employees. We have a client now who pays for 100% of the employees' healthcare. We don't even tell the candidates that before they interview. They find out and they're absolutely floored by it. They cannot believe it. They're like, wow, it's just one less thing that I have to deal with. The other thing that we found really helps with retention is just hearing your employees out. However you need to do that. Some companies wait till annual reviews and then just they give a survey. They say it's anonymous. Who knows if it is? Companies like that tend to have higher attrition rates. What we're seeing is the companies that go and actually truly care about what their employees say and take that feedback and do something with it are the ones that are going to keep their employees way longer. Throughout at least my career, I've moved on from companies that just would always tell me this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to keep doing it. And when we started our company, we said we're going to be the opposite of that. We want our employees' input. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones actually doing the job. Yeah. Rob and I have done every job at our company. We've done it. We know how to do it. But the thing is, like, our roles have shifted, as we've grown the business. So we're not the ones actually like doing a ton of the work. You got to take the people's opinion and hear them out. The closer that they are to doing the work, the more important their opinion is, and really take it to heart. You're not necessarily going to implement all of it, but just letting someone know that their voice is being heard can be huge. And going back to them and say, I've heard you. And even going back to them and saying like, we heard you, we're not able to implement it right now, but we're definitely going to keep it on our radar. That can have a huge impact, because when people get told this is the way we've always done it, we're never changing it, it is absolutely defeating to them. That's when apathy starts growing. That's when people, mail it in, start looking for a new role, do just enough not to get fired. And that's what you want to avoid. it's almost, I think what's it called now? Quiet quitting.
Yeah.
Where you basically, are the employee's not quitting. They're basically forcing you to fire them. Which is, if you're seeing that, as a business owner, I would say, look in the mirror and figure out why that employee is doing it. Because I don't believe in bad employees. I mean, of course, there's some out there. I'll take that back. But the overwhelming majority of employees that become apathetic are not bad employees. They didn't come into that role saying, I'm going to do as little as possible just to skate by. They came in bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, whatever saying you want to use, and the environment or something happened to them and they became that way. And you can give them exit interviews till you're blue in the face. People are only going to give you feedback if they respect you and truly believe that you're going to do something with it. So an exit interview is not a cure-all for this. You need to, obviously if it's a long-term employee who respects you, they're probably going to tell you the truth. But think about it. You have a bad experience at some restaurant that you went to the first time, you booked it on Open Table. You're probably not going to tell them what they did, that they're not going to get your business again.
You're just not going back.
You're just not going to show up again. One of my favorite comedians talks about that, Sebastian Maniscalco. He's like, I went to the restaurant, had bad salmon, the fish was overcooked. I just don't go back. Where do people get the time to go on Yelp and make all these reviews? It's actually kind of funny. If you haven't seen Sebastian, I'd check him out. But yeah, I mean, you really need to take a look in the mirror if this is happening to you and figure out what is going on with it. The people will go and do these best places to work surveys. I mean, I don't know Rob, what are your thoughts on that? These best place to work awards that get given out by business journals and different publications. How much weight do you think those hold?
I mean, depends on the company.
Okay.
And I know that's not the right answer. I think some of them hold a lot of weight. I think there's others out there that are pay to play.
Sure.
So I would take it with a grain of sand or a grain of salt, whatever the saying is.
Right.
Just kind of get in there, and if you're interviewing, make sure you're asking questions. Look at how long the people have been there, and see how they treat you through the whole process. Because if the interview process and the onboarding process is kind of wonky, there's probably reasons for that. Now, that's not saying that some of the paperwork and things like that's not going to get screwed up, right? Or that they just put out a brand new HRIS system and it is what it is. Or they're just using really old technology out there for some of the stuff, because that you can't necessarily judge the company on technology for their onboarding unless that's the software that they're selling, and in which case you could do it. But the takeaways I want people to kind of get from this is that every business has their balance sheet. Okay, every business has a model in place to grow, and in order to do this, they have to look internal at their people, because that's really how they're going to be able to multiply and grow the organization. So companies that are in growth mode, hire smart, right? Hire intentionally, and make sure that you're solving solutions to either problems you have or upcoming problems you have due to growth. And when you do that, you're able to just multiply your investment, right? That $100,000 salary that you just paid someone, that $60,000 salary, there's a quality of life change. There's a revenue change, and your company's overall morale will change. So, again, hire intentionally, and for the reasons that you need to grow your business. And that's my takeaway for everyone.
Great.
This.
Thanks, Rob. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on Growth by Design, brought to you by RX2 Solutions. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. If you found value in today's conversation, make sure to click the like button and subscribe. Also, feel free to share this with someone in your network who's focused on building smarter organizations. We'll be back soon with more conversations on intentional people strategies and how they drive real business growth. Until then, keep growing by design.